Hello, friends. This is Charles Bird welcoming you to the August 19th, 2024 edition of Rant-Om Thoughts, where sacred cows are grilled and killed for your lunching and munching pleasure. And boy, do we have some Brahmins ready for the slaughterhouse today. All right. July. Last month. I had gotten home from work and saw my news feeds with headlines about Donald Trump being shot or shot at in Butler, Pennsylvania, at a rally. So, like a lot of Americans, I was curious about it. I took a closer look, watched the footage, and tried to wait for more facts to come out. There were already competing narratives within the first 24 hours of this happening. The first narrative is the official story that Robert Crooks, some misfit lone gunman, outsmarted local police and the Secret Service and almost single-handedly took down Trump by himself. That made my BS detector light up like a Christmas tree. So I've automatically ruled that out. Though I should say that if there is anything to the official story, is that it does raise uncomfortable questions about federal law enforcement's DEI practices, its prioritization of diversity over merit in hiring and promotions, which of course is not a conversation that the establishment media wants people to have, so that's probably the real reason why they're trying to sweep this all under the rug and memory hole it. And then there's this other narrative. Now, before I get into this, let me just put on the accent and kind of get into character here, because this is how it sounds in my head when I hear this stuff. So here goes. Donald John Trump, the rightful president of these United States, the commander-in-chief of the American people, the American Cyrus, as foretold in biblical prophecy and in the sermons of Pastor John Hagee and Reverend Kenneth Copeland, was nearly taken out by a transsexual Antifa hitman hired by the deep state, and that it was all halted by divine intervention, proving that Donald John Trump is our savior, that he was sent here by God to defeat the Islamo-fascists, protect Israel, and pay back Iran for 9/11. Yeah. You know what's funnier than people believing that crap? So-called Dissident Inc., the question everything people, the people who were big 9/11 truthers 2 decades ago, and whenever a mass shooting or a school shooting would happen, they were always screaming about crisis actors and the building being a hologram. They wanted us to accept blindly, without question, that this was an attempted deep state hit. Come on. Oh, come frickin' on. Really? Well, here's the thing. I watched the footage. Saw the red stuff on his face. And I immediately wondered why didn't any of the blood get on his shirt? And I've been to enough Halloween parties in my lifetime to know what fake blood looks like. And enough Halloween parties, enough horror film festivals. Real blood doesn't congeal that quickly. And the whole thing with the fist pumping, with the flag in the background, and fight, fight, fight. That just looked so staged and phony to me. And my head almost immediately went to a plot line in a film that would air frequently on cable in the 90s called Bob Roberts. Now, for those of you not familiar with Bob Roberts, it was a mockumentary that was released in 1992. It was made by Timothy Robbins and starred Timothy Robbins as this neoconservative folk singer who runs for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania as a Republican. Well, towards the towards the middle of the film, his campaign gets derailed by allegations of drug trafficking, gun running, and savings and loan shenanigans. Typical Republican stuff. So, as Bob Roberts and his entourage is leaving the live taping of a popular comedy sketch show that's basically a thinly disguised Saturday Night Live, he allegedly gets shot, and the investigative reporter who exposes him as you know this drug trafficking gun runner, savings and loan crook. Well, he has the assassination attempt pinned on him. Now, towards the end of the film, and I know some of you are going to freak out about spoilers, but this is a 32-year-old film. Thousands, if not millions, of people have already seen it. It's not that big a deal. Right? Towards the end of the film, the story unravels. The man they tried to frame had cerebral palsy and couldn't operate the firearm. Then he had a prominent campaign staffer quit in disgust over some undisclosed reason. Then we see footage of the title character, Bob Roberts, playing a pro-war song in front of a crowd of prominent businessmen in tuxedos and military personnel in their dress blues. And the camera zooms in on his foot tapping, right? He's supposedly wheelchair bound. He supposedly took shots in the spine that was supposed to permanently rob him of his ability to walk. Yet he's tapping his toe to the pro-war ditty that he's singing. And then finally, at the end of the film, we see him walk across a closed curtain in silhouette. And, I tried my best to avoid the conclusion that what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania was a staged psyop. I tried my best to resist that. I did not want to be that person who latches on to whatever rumor he hears that confirms his biases and then runs crazy with it, because that's what Alex Jones does. 9/11 was an inside job. Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax. Oh, those two Chechens, they aren't the real marathon bombers. It was Navy SEALs. Crap like that. But within a couple of weeks, he makes his first appearance without the ear bandage. And yeah, there's no scarring, no stitching, no scabbing, no skid marks, no powder burns, no nothing. And that was Trump's toe-tapping moment for me. So here's what I really believe happened in Butler. And I don't care how many of you crybabies out there I offend by saying this. I believe it was a fake blood packet underneath his ball cap. He ducked, popped the fake blood packet, and when the shooting started, the real sniper, probably a Mossad or CIA trained hitman contracted by the Brighton Beach Mafia, who were Trump's longtime benefactors going back to the late 70s, took out the bystanders, as many as they could. They killed the fire chief, wounded a bunch of others, and then helped the Secret Service take care of Thomas Crooks, the patsy. Yeah, I said Robert earlier. No, his actual name's Thomas. Senior moment. Took out Thomas Crooks, who I believe was a QAnon supporter of subnormal intelligence, who was convinced by his handlers that Q sent them and that the White Hats needed his help to protect Trump, and that's how he had easy access to everything. And Trump did this to, one, score sympathy votes, stop pro-life factions in the Republican Party from a planned floor fight over keeping pro-life language in the GOP platform, and finally to mainstream anti-gun politics into the Republican Party, whether he wins in November or not. And if he is given another term, we will probably see him signing red flag ERPO and AR-15 bans, with the National Rifle Association being on board for it. And any Liberty Republican like Thomas Massie or Rand Paul being targeted in primaries if they dare push back against it. That's what's going to happen. And the thing about Dissident Inc. pushing the deep state hit narrative is that at the time this was going on, you had Whitney Webb and Derek Bros all over The Last American Vagabond and all over Twitter exposing J.D. Vance's links to Peter Thiel, and how Peter Thiel's been buying up alternative media outlets, and how he's been cutting opinion payola checks to influencers, podcasters, YouTubers, TikTokers. And it's giving me flashbacks back to back to the early aughts when you had Clear Channel, a subsidiary of Mitt Romney-owned Bain Capital, buying up local talk radio stations and turning an entire medium, talk radio, into the radio division of a de facto propaganda ministry for George W. Bush, the Republican Party, and the military-industrial complex. And we're seeing a repeat of that now with Teal and alternative media. And you know, and hearing this connects a lot of dots for me, because I'm also convinced that Teal is the one bankrolling the so-called post-libertarian movement. He's a huge financial patron of Mencius Moldbug, or Curtis Yarvin, which is his actual name. And there are a lot of people in the post-libertarian movement who are influenced by him, and and that whole thing is about demoralizing burnt-out liberty activists and pipering them away from libertarianism and into some sort of neo-fascism, which they have some fancy word for it, but really, if you boil it all down, it's just neo-fascism. So yeah, and then there's the way the MAGA communists they dogpiled on Kyle Rittenhouse. He attended YaleCon, had dinner with Dr. Ron Paul and Dan McAdams, and then he said he was going to write in Ron Paul because of Donald Trump's horrendous record on Second Amendment rights. Well, he got struggle sessioned, cyberbullied for 12 hours by an angry mob. A publisher threatened to cancel a book that he had in the works. And whoever's been financing Mr. Rittenhouse's trips to events like YaleCon threatened to cut him off. So he did an unnecessary mea culpa. He's a young man. He's still figuring things out. I'm not going to give him any grief for it, but I hope that as he grows and matures, that he'll realize that the only real error he made was in buckling under the pressure. He should have held firm. But yeah, if Trump is given another term, we're going to see Bolshevik-led street violence. Of course, the lame duck administration. It's already a lame duck administration. I'll get to that later. The Democrat governors, the Democrat mayors, they're going to just order the police to stand down and watch the cities burn. And the new administration is going to use that as an excuse to clamp down really hard on civil liberties. That's what'll happen. And we'll see gun control. We'll see more gun control, and I have nieces and nephews who are of draft age or pretty close to it. And they're going to get called up. They're going to get called up because J.D. Vance, Mr. Hillbilly Elegy, wants to hit Iran hard. A week after the Butler Psyop, another surprise. Joe Biden pulling a Lyndon Johnson and announcing he was not going to seek another term for the presidency, effectively making Kamala Harris the presumptive nominee of the Democrat Party. There is more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris amongst the Democrat Party base than there is for Biden. They don't care that she rose to the top of Bay Area politics literally by being Willie Brown's mistress. They don't care that she ruined people's lives as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, and as a state attorney general. They don't care about the boss from hell stories from her time in the Senate or her time as vice president. They look at a woman who is of Jamaican descent and mixed African and East Indian ancestry, and they think, ooh, historic opportunity. We get to vote for a woman of color for president. It's her turn. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing about Kamala Harris, the scary thing is she's learning from the mistakes of the Hillary Clinton campaign of 2016. She's triangulating on issues like energy independence, wages and taxes on tips for service industry workers. You know, and this is a strategy that that got Bill Clinton elected in 1996, reelected in 1996. So, you know, Trumpkins, laugh and underestimate her at your peril. And if you want a really good preview of what a Kamala Harris administration is going to do to dissidents, take a look at what the Starmer government's doing in the UK. Yeah, jailing people for saying the wrong things on social media. Oh, it's coming here. Mark my words. And don't kid yourself into thinking Trump's going to be any better on this. They're both criminals. Our country is doomed either way. I wish I could say the Libertarian Party is offering a credible candidate for president. Unfortunately, what happened was you had backroom shenanigans and parliamentary maneuvering, saddling us with a joke candidate. And that's what Chase Oliver is. He's a joke. He's unserious. Yeah, he's for his priorities are siding with the left in culture war issues. And he doesn't defend actual libertarian values like limited government, individual liberty, free markets. He spent 5 years denouncing half the party as Nazis and bigots. He has openly disrespected Ron Paul, the greatest living statesman of our age. And I'll tell you something right now. If you reject Ron Paul, I reject you. I reject you, Chase Oliver. You aren't getting my vote. And I am encouraging anyone listening to this, do not cast your vote for him, no matter how tempted you are to think he is the best option on the ballot. He's not. He just is not. I've tried consoling myself by telling myself that the Mises Caucus still has a majority on the LNC board and still controls the majority of state LP organizations, but without breaching confidentiality, without airing dirty laundry, I'm not going to attack anyone. This isn't some heel turn. I actually want the Mises Caucus to prosper and the Libertarian Party to prosper. But right now, there's been a change in leadership. It is directionless, it is rudderless, and course corrections need to be made. Because right now, the caucus is bleeding membership, it is bleeding talent, it is bleeding funds. And changes have to be made. There are some in Libertarian Party leadership, not naming names, so some of you know exactly who I'm talking about. Their way to deal with Chase Oliver being the nominee is to just use him to peel off votes from Joe Biden, peel off left-wing votes from Joe Biden to help Trump win, in hopes that Trump will deliver on the empty, pandering words he farted out of his mouth in Washington, D.C. Well, there's a big problem with that. One, no left-winger I know personally is going to vote for Chase Oliver. I don't care what your polling numbers tell you. All right? I don't care. I know how to play with numbers too to make them confirm my biases and tell me things I want to hear. I know how that game is played. That does not work on me. No left-winger that I know is going to vote for Chase Oliver. Now, none of the lemmings from high school who have unfriended me from MySpace and Facebook over the decades because they can't handle critical thinkers on their friends lists are going to vote for Chase Oliver. They're just going to vote for whichever yellow dog the Democrat Party runs, because either that's what their favorite celebrities tell them to, or because that's how their parents, grandparents, going all the way back to when some stooge from Tammany Hall approached their ancestor fresh off the boat and said, "Welcome to the Democrat Party," has done. And then you have people like my cousin Jimbo. He's been on SSI disability most of his adult life, despite being able to do menial, work at, say, Walmart or McDonald's. Right? Now, he may be in agreement with Chase Oliver on cultural stuff. He may be totally simpatico with him on the issue of, overweight, middle-aged, bearded men in kinky leather lingerie twerking in front of kindergartners. But Chase Oliver doesn't offer free stuff. Jimbo votes for whoever offers him free stuff. And Democrats offer him free stuff. he sees the word libertarian next to Chase Oliver's name, he'll just associate it with, well, his evil, racist, sexist, classist, ableist, homophobic, transphobic, map-phobic cousin Charlie who wants to take away his free stuff and make him work for his living. And as for the dissident left, the ones who absolutely refuse to vote Democrat, well, they all, because of their support for, say, Israel's actions in Gaza, they already have a candidate. They already have two candidates, actually. Cornel West and Jill Stein. They're not going to vote for Chase Oliver. And now that Biden's out of the race and you have a Democrat Party base that is more enthused and energetic about Kamala Harris, well, that just changes the whole game. But yeah, there are people in the Libertarian Party leadership. Some of them had a secret meeting with him in Mar-a-Lago late last year. And they want us to forget that Trump is an elite pedophile and a war criminal because he was nice to them and said nice things to them and told them things they wanted to hear. And they have it in their heads that if they have his ear and they stroke his ego and curry favor with him and suck up to him and defend him at every turn, that he'll deliver on those promises that he made to libertarians in Washington D.C. That's not going to happen at all. Trump makes promises and doesn't deliver on them. Did Mexico pay for the wall? No, it didn't even get built. And don't tell me that 97 miles of sheet metal fence is a wall. Did Hillary Clinton get locked up? No. She and her husband, fellow Epstein client, Bill Clinton, are still at large and raking in huge fortunes from their speaking fees. Did Obamacare get repealed? No, even though there was ample opportunity during the first 2 years of Trump's first term to do it, it never happened. It never even came up. And that's not Trump derangement syndrome. That is historic fact. So now, the Department of Education or any other cabinet department is not going to get abolished. Ross Ulbricht, as much as I want to see him breathe free air again, is going to still be behind bars at the end of Trump's term. And I don't see any of his successors, Democrat or Republican, freeing him. The best case scenario would be getting a humanitarian release if he lives to a very advanced old age. And no, Jarvanka, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump, the true president and co-president of the Trump administration, once and future, will not let a libertarian anywhere near the cabinet. No, it's going to be tech bros. It's going to be New York cronies. It's going to be the same old crowd from before, and it's going to be a bunch of neocon stooge puppets, and it's going to be the same crap. So don't be pissing in my face and calling it sunshine. I have already told you the story, but about how I was privy to an hours-long conversation with Justin Amash back in 2022, 2 years ago at the Long Beach Hilton in the lobby. One part of the story I'm not sure I got around to telling was how when Trump took office in 2017, a lot of his colleagues in the Freedom Caucus that he founded, these were guys who were elected on the wave of the Tea Party movement and its early successes. They said, "Look, we're going to try to change Trump. We're going to try to blunt those authoritarian instincts. We're going to try to steer him towards limited government and individual liberty and free markets." And unfortunately, the opposite happened. Trump changed them, and they became rubber stamps to whatever the Trump administration wanted. And that's what I'm worried is going to happen to the leadership of the LP if Trump is given another term, that we're going to see bootlicking and conformity from them as the bombs continue to drop, as our civil liberties are going to be stomped on, while my nieces get sent to fight in a war that J.D. Vance wants. God help us. God help us. So, who will I be voting for or supporting? Protest vote, Randall Terry. Yeah, he's a single issue guy. He doesn't devote a lot of thought or research into issues outside of sanctity of life issues. I wish somebody would lock him in a room with Scott Horton for 4 hours and set him straight on foreign policy. But if there's anything to be said about Randall Terry, the Constitution Party nominee, it's that he does have the strength of his convictions. Arrested over 40 times for his pro-life activism, bankrupted, financially ruined by vindictive lawfare from the National Organization for Women. And he still keeps doing what he's doing. And you just got to admire that. So that's who's getting my vote, if not my support. If he isn't on the ballot in California, well, I'm going to write him in. If he's not a qualified write-in candidate, I'm still going to vote with my dollars and send a donation, the biggest I can afford. All right, well, that's it for now. I'm going to try to get into some sort of routine where I'm doing this at least once a month, and I'm going to try to look for more guests to do convo, because I really enjoy doing that and talking to people on my show. So, and I'm going to start, I'm also going to start cross-posting on Rumble more often. Yeah, it's owned by Peter Thiel, so friggin' what? It's just that Gab, one of the platforms I'm on, is getting kind of weird with Facebook link. Not Facebook links, but YouTube links. So I'm gonna, start cross posting there as well. Maybe even put exclusive content on there that I can't use here on YouTube. So I love you all. Uh, and I'll see you next time. Think while it's still legal. Because I'm pretty sure that both the Harris and the Trump administrations are going to try to clamp down on that too. All right. I love you. See you next time.